Hello, welcome to Trust Your Glitter. Today is the 16th of July, and this is Breaking Through Resistance, and this is my little segment, day 6 of the 5 W's and H of building / rebuilding a new vision for yourself, writing for the new moon in Cancer. So we have one more day. Today is Sunday here via Eastern Standard Time. So on Sunday, today's the sun's day. So we want to look at where the sun is right now. So because we're going into a new moon cycle, the sun and the moon will align together. And today the lunar cycles are starting to match up with the solar cycles. So we're really gonna feel this energetic pull today as the moon is in the crescent phase, leading up, waning, balsamic, into the new moon energy. So we're closing up, going into the shell of the hermit crab, so to speak, with this energy. So even though the energy is solar, meaning today is Sunday, we're also in a Cancer season, so the solar energy reflects within the lunar energy. So we kind of have this very unique time. And I'm going to record my full podcast, Trust Your Glitter, for the astrology transits ahead, because this upcoming week is incredible when it comes to astrology. So not only do we have a new moon, which I'll talk about with my main podcast, but we also have a bunch of aspects and a bunch of transits that are just extremely important to 2023. So this is a really good exercise, this 5 W's, which, really the who, what, when, where, why, and then today, day 6, is how, of digging in deep with a lunar new moon. And I think it's really, really pivotal, whether you're doing this format or your own sacred format, whatever that is. This is just kind of like an exercise that I'm experimenting with, because we're given this gift at the top of the week, and I'll talk about that on the main podcast. So we're about to receive this really big gift, and today is a really, really good day to journal about this. So if you're following along with the exercise, if you're coming at this afterwards, say like a Mercury retrograde, because I watch my podcasts, like how they kind of cycle with the SEO and things like that, and I'm learning all this stuff. But like sometimes with Mercury retrogrades, like things will pull you back in, or if you're a Cancer sign and you're just listening to transits for your sign, things like that. If you're coming into this after this new moon cycle, and this is the first podcast you're listening to, this is basically a writing exercise, writing prompts for new moon. So if you're doing writing prompts, you can do it all in one day. Just who, what, when, where, why, and how of manifesting or setting these new goals for yourself, and kind of cycling with the vibes of the moon. I'm going to work through what I want to process with how I'm going to take it forward through the lunar transits ahead, but I'm still kind of working that through. So I want to also talk about that, because today's questions I split, because today is the sun's day, and sun energy is very like warm and masculine. But because we're in Cancer season, and the sign of Cancer's ruler is the moon, today's question I split into divine feminine and divine masculine. So the question of how, actually, I'm going to kind of split it into more like a twin flame lesson. So like this could be the internal twin flame within you, which is like honoring your sacred feminine and your sacred masculine through these astrological transits, or legit just kind of how you want to look at this from the yin yang duality aspect. So the first question for day 6 for how is, how does it feel? So once you like start achieving your goals or going for your goals, going for these new lessons in your life, and we've gone through the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and after this why, finding this why, identifying this why are you doing this? Going for how does it feel? Like, how does it really make you feel? Really dig into that. Like, and because Cancer is all about the feelings, it's really digging into like all of these feelings. So for example, some things I wrote, because I'll share, like, I wrote more words related to really how it feels. So for me, it feels luscious, it feels joyous, it feels I feel accomplished and grounded and rooted and happy and loved and respected and valued and juicy and aware and present and appreciated and connected and free and heard and flowy and feminine and powerful and kind and compassionate and in flow and satiated with that flow. It feels like my anxiety has lifted. So that's some examples of how does it feel when you really start digging into these goals, going for these goals, or reforming and rebuilding this vision for yourself. And so the next question I actually put, so that's the divine feminine aspect of the how. And then the next is looking at this from the solar divine masculine aspect, because we're leading up to the new moon. We just happen to have a new moon on a Monday. So we really get this lesson very, very perfectly. It couldn't have been more aligned synchronistically for us all in so many ways as we lead into this very pivotal date coming up on the 17th. So here we are on a Sunday, Eastern Standard Time wise. And the masculine question for the how is, how do I take action on this? So you can write it out as like, how do I take action to do blank, like fill in the blank. How do I take action here? So that's the divine masculine side, taking action around your new vision. And I wrote out like a pretty extensive list regarding this, but you can write words just like with the feeling, you know, how does it feel? The taking action part can also just be like empowering, expressive, like however it goes. I wrote out like a detailed list in this particular case for taking action. So like one thing I'll share just as an example of like how I felt this particular masculine side, this masculine question is, how do I take action is for example, I want to like read one that's not super, well, let me just be, so for example, one of the things is, how do I make an email listserv? I've had a lot of trouble in the past, like with a couple of different email listservs, and it's kind of embarrassing for me. It's a source of embarrassment because, you know, I've been an astrologer and tarot card reader since 2015, and just recently realized like how many parties and events and networking events that I've worked where I didn't have the confidence to start an email list and get people's emails, and didn't feel worthy of getting people's emails. So I realized over the years that's a hole in my business. Like, that's something that I have to go back and take action around. So as I do this, like learning how to do an email listserv where I have regular emails that go out, and I use Substack, but for me, like, that's a how, and I feel a lot of shame around that how. I feel like, wow, like I've been in business for this long and people have hired me, and still I don't feel worthy to have an email list serve of my own, So, and there's other places of the business that I need to take action around. I've been an underground astrologer and tarot reader for so long, and I would consider this podcast semi-underground, even though I want to say thank you so much because I just appreciate the continued listens. It's really, 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 really cool. So I really hope that this writing exercise is helping, because the new moon is such a blessing, and we get to have them once a month, or generally once a month. Sometimes there's a bonus, but today I want to say, with this energy, I'm just flipping in my notebook because I have the aspects written. So with the sun, the solar and lunar energy kind of starting to melt into one another, we're going to start feeling really, really compelled to sit with our creative energy. And I think what's really supporting is the aspect of the sun quintile Jupiter today, which is a quintile is an aspect that splits the chart into fives, and with that generally brings about if planets are 72 degrees or 144 degrees from one another, which numerology wise, if we take that energy, it's the energy of 9. So I was kind of looking at the numerology here, and the quintile between Jupiter and Taurus and the sun in Cancer really does ask us to take leadership around our extremely creative, deep creative love, our deep creative callings. I think calling is probably a better way to say it. The things that call to our soul. So Jupiter is going to be very active this week. So in the preparation for this, working with this exercise, if you're doing this throughout this new moon, there's more work to be done throughout the week. So this new moon is setting us up, and it's going to be something that is a blessing. But we are kind of preparing for a new era. And that is an extremely important time to dig into the emotional side of this whole situation. Like we're maybe, like, for example, that's why I shared the email listserv, because it's not just about not having an email listserv, it's about the emotions behind not having an email listserv. It's about, this is a business that I do and a service that I provide, and yet since 2015, even with people writing reviews or coming back to me for readings over the years, I still have to have permission for myself to create an email list and make this real in a lot of ways. And I know that an email list doesn't seem like, maybe to somebody who has one, that it would make something super real, but to me it's to me, it's something that I realize over the years, it's like an action with an emotion attached to it, an inaction that had a deep emotion, that had a deep calling attached to it. So those are the kinds of things we're going to be digging into. So for you, like, what's your email listserv shame thing that the actions are asking you through these questions of how? And I really am grateful for everybody who keeps, if you're out there and you keep journaling and you keep writing and you keep digging in, like, I'm so grateful that for those who are doing this work alongside, it has been a blessing. And I am so grateful for those who have sent me messages. Shout out, somebody is literally sending me their entire journal every day, and I'm super grateful for that. It's very, very kind. I'm really, like, the vulnerability, the truth, like, keeps me going too. So if you're out there, like, doing this alongside day by day, just know that it motivates me to keep going as well. Because sometimes when we upload these podcasts, like podcast creators, content creators, it's hard not to stop. Especially, like, I've moved over to YouTube very recently, which was another shame thing. And it has been, like, just pushing myself to keep doing it. And I know, like, Mel Robbins has a whole podcast about this where she's, like, telling her own son, like, keep going even though you have one viewer, like, keep going. And it's like, okay, I'm going to keep going. But it is, like, it's tough. It's tough. And, like, the motivation behind it. And so if you're also out there creating, know that this new moon, like, I can see the transits, I can see the astrology. And as somebody who has read astrology for so many people over the years, like, I can see it, and seeing it for myself is generally the hardest part. So, like, as I look at this astrology, I'm, like, reinforcing, like, hey, you get to also enjoy life as well with this beautiful astrology on the way. So this has been Trust Your Glitter, Breaking Through Resistance Writing Challenge for the new moon in Cancer. If you like my podcast, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share in your stories. I'm grateful. Thank you for those sharing in the stories. I just recently discovered the Chartable, which I didn't even know existed as well for I knew that podcast rankings and Chartable existed. I just assumed that was just for people like Joe Rogan who have, like, a bajillion listeners. But I didn't realize when I looked at Chartable, I was like, not too shabby for this little podcast that could. So I'm like, dang, like, that's pretty freaking fantastic. So thank you for those who keep listening, because I'm based on the category is still stand-up comedy. I didn't realize I still categorize this as stand-up in the podcast I guess field. And I didn't want to move it to, like, spiritual, because I swear way too much and I go on these long-winded tangents like I did today. And so I was like, well, let me keep it at stand-up comedy, because there's a balance here. And also, like, I'm not, like, love and light glitter, and I love glitter, but I'm not, like, love and light, like, farts that smell like roses. Like, my farts smell like farts, you know? So, like, I'm just gonna keep this baby over in the stand-up comedy category. But, like, for a comedy podcast, for a US ranking where there's thousands of podcasts, she's doing good for herself, you know what I'm saying? So we're here, we're sticking around, and we're making some progress here. So this has been Trust Your Glitter. I am Kristinabelich, often on long-winded tangents, and thank you for listening.